On this episode, we feature founder of the YouTube channel Sussex County Bigfoot, aka In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, if I could talk today. Bigfoot researcher, explorer, documentary filmmaker, and return guest from episode 24, Big Red Eye. I'd like to welcome Mike Familant to the show. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time to do this. It's been a while since we chatted, man. I mean, it's been definitely over a year. I don't know. It's been quite some time.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to our other podcast before, and I was like, "Oh man, that that was a long time ago." But
Yeah.
been doing good, man. How about yourself? You been all right?
Oh yeah, not too bad. Not too
Good,
bad.
man.
I feel like I'm much more maybe perhaps spiritually enlightened since last we spoke. And
Awesome.
I'm on this real crazy vibe right now, like with Bigfoot. So it's like crazy that I'm so excited to have you on today because like I don't get too many guests that are real knowledgeable on the subject, but the last couple episodes, and then I just finished an interview, it hasn't been published yet, of some filmmakers who well, they haven't released the documentary yet. I think it releases July 5th, but they're getting ready to release one. But I got to watch the documentary, and wow, what a job they did. But it just kind of sparked my interest
Cool.
some more for it. So yeah, I'm excited. So I mean, how have you been, man?
Yeah, it's been busy. Busy is the key word. That seems to be the last couple of months, but that's good though. I've been doing a lot of presentations, a lot of vending events we got. Actually, tomorrow morning I'm off to central or western Pennsylvania. We have the Forest County Bigfoot Festival out there, so I'm going to be vending at that, which is all weekend. So, but
What
good, man.
what
Yeah,
what part of Western Pennsylvania? You said where's that at? That
it's
fort?
in the Alleghenies,
Oh, okay.
Marionville.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Cool, very cool. That's awesome. I didn't even realize you did events like that. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, yep. We try to get out to as many events as we can. Just depends on the cost of the tables and stuff like that. But yeah, we sell some small merchandise. Sell a lot of decals. We have stickers and stuff that we sell, and then we have some like Bigfoot jewelry and stuff like that. It seems to be a hit. So and all that just supports our gas and our research fund.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Never got a chance to go to one of those events. I actually was planning on going to the Ohio Bigfoot conference a couple years back to meet Tony Merkel and some of the podcast people that I enjoy listening to, and it got canceled because of COVID. It really bummed me out, man, at the time. Maybe one of these days I'll be able to, get out to one of those events. How has the YouTube channel been going?
Dude, it's been growing, man. It's been awesome. I'm trying to put out stuff pretty regularly now, so at least every other week we have a new episode stuff coming out, and I think we're almost at 1.6 thousand followers now, which is like insane. Just not too long ago I was celebrating 1,000. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's
pretty incredible, man. I mean, even to get to 1,000 these
oh,
days is hard to
never in a
do.
million years when I first started this channel, could you imagine me, having followers like that? I'd just be happy with like 10 people. If like my friends watch my show, like that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't even think they watch though. That's all right too.
yeah. I get it. I get it. That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, so I'm assuming that, it's still about your adventures and things like that, and you going out into the woods and out into the forest, and any strange occurrences or potential proof that Bigfoot exists.
Oh man, well, we found a track over in Sparta Mountain, which is pretty cool. That's going to be coming up on one of the episodes. And that episode is really cool because in there, we actually on my YouTube channel last October, we had a thermal. I caught it myself, a thermal recording in High Point State Park, and it was during the day, and it was crazy, and you can't really tell what it is, but I think it's a Bigfoot. So that was really awesome. uh,
Did you
daytime.
did you put that on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's up there. Anybody could take a look at that now. It's Bigfoot Thermal in New Jersey or something like that.
Nice. That's cool. That's cool. So this happened, you said, in the daytime?
Yeah, it's actually I was recording for the show, so not only did I have my regular daytime, high def camera going, but I also had my thermal camera going because I wanted to try it out in the day. Just because one of my old research partners was he was like, well, he used his during the day, and I said, well, why? And he said, well, you could see, things that you can't pick up, and I said, well, I guess so. So I just wanted to try it, and I'm glad I did, because if I didn't have the thermal, I would have never saw the thing. So it's pretty
That's
wild.
cool. So
Yeah.
how long did it last? I mean,
Oh,
was it
all of like a millisecond. The thing stood up and then it walked into the wood line, but the
oh
camera's
man.
shaky and stuff, so it's hard to tell. It's not my best work, but it's definitely something there, and it's not a person. So I think that's pretty neat.
That's cool, man. That's real cool. So you potentially have evidence of a Bigfoot on camera. That's pretty dope. Um, and there's, I've seen some videos out there. I'm sure you have too. I mean, what are your thoughts on some of the videos? I mean, some of them, I mean, I'm not a film expert, so I don't know. I mean, I guess they could have been faked or doctored, but some of them seem legit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the video. I think a lot of them are probably misidentifications or hoaxes and stuff like that. But then you have the couple, the handful of really good ones, and it only takes one to be legit, to have a legit thing on your hands. So um, I don't know. The Patterson Gimlin film is the famous one in California from 1967, and that one's been debated for years and years and years, ever since the footage came out. But I'm a believer in that footage. I mean, if you look, the thing's got a tumor on its leg as it walks. Like, I don't know, in 1967, how someone's going to put a tumor in a costume like that. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And I think there's been experts that have like analyzed the way that it's walked even, and that
Yeah.
it's almost it's not like a human would maybe carry himself. And then the other weird thing is it has like it looks like it has breasts.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like
female.
if you were gonna fake that, like I don't know if you would go to that extent to think that far ahead to try to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just, yeah, I think there might be some legitimacy to that. And like you said, back then, I mean, I guess they had costumes and stuff, but it just
Yeah, they
it
said it would have cost, like, in today's money, like $3 million or $1 million or some outrageous number to make that costume in the 1960s.
it just seems so highly unlikely then that it was faked,
Yeah, yeah.
just considering the time it was. So, what is your favorite place to investigate,
Oh man.
and why?
um, I don't know. See, I like going down to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey because I try to go down there every fall just because it's beautiful down there. And I got a lot of that's kind of central to where a lot of my bigfooting buddies are. So we all kind of get together and have like a year-end party down there, Squatch Fest or whatever. But my favorite place, if I wanted to gather evidence, would have to be Whitehall, New York, and that's right on the Vermont border. Um, it's outside of Lake George, and I say that because every time we go up to Whitehall, we seem to come back with some better evidence that we've had than we went up there with. So it's an amazing place. Just a couple of years ago, we were surrounded by Bigfoot up there. It was one of the scariest encounters my team's ever had before. And we were surrounded by like three of them, and we have all that on audio evidence, which is in the Whitehall episode on the YouTube channel. You can hear that firsthand, actually.
And then when you say audio, was it like the kind of like them calling out or making them like them screeching noises or them yelling noises, or was it just
And
like
this in this particular circumstance, it was branches breaking. You could hear footfalls, like footsteps. You could hear rocks being thrown and narrowly missing and hitting like trees and stuff like that. So it's very Blair Witchy, if you will.
Yeah, that would be very unnerving, I think, to be, especially if you're, pretty far out there from civilization, out in the wilderness by, you and just maybe a group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not we didn't have any cameras, and I think that's probably why we had such a close encounter. But I don't know, we had a couple people with us, so it's cool that everybody got to experience that, and it wasn't just me. So it wasn't just me telling a story. Other people can verify it.
That's interesting. And you mentioned, perhaps there was more activity because you didn't have a camera. And I want to get into some of that here in a little bit, because there's a lot of strangeness that surrounds Sasquatch and what goes on. And I don't know what it is, man. It just makes me question what it is. And we're gonna get into that. And I think I do believe that it's a thing. Like, I don't want to discredit anybody. And I believe a lot of these people that have had sightings are like avid woodsmen and avid hunters, and like they're people who know the woods, and they're not going to misidentify stuff, and they're not the type of people that just make stuff up to get attention. So I do believe that, some of these sightings are there's something there. Plus, not to mention, the history of it, you going back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years of, the lore of it.
If there wasn't something, I, I would be I'd be more surprised if there wasn't a Bigfoot type creature, if there rather than if there was. And like you just said, the history of sightings, they go back to Native American times and before. And you have the thousands and thousands of sightings today by people, like you said, they're by doctors, by lawyers, by people like actual like people, upstanding members of the community, and by every race and occupation and socioeconomic status that you could possibly imagine has seen Bigfoot. That's why it's such a crazy phenomenon.
Not to
Um,
mention all over the world, right? We're not talking like, just in North America or the United States.
yeah, every continent except Antarctica has a Bigfoot type creature. Absolutely.
Wow. And then if I'm not mistaken, I don't know about Hawaii, but I think like pretty much every state has had a sighting, right?
Yeah, every state but Hawaii. Hawaii has they actually have little men, little feet, I guess, if you will. But they're more of gnome-like creatures. But yes, every state except Hawaii does have Bigfoot sightings. Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, so I'm going to get back on that, but I got another question for you. So, we talked about your favorite places to investigate. What is somewhere that like would be the ideal perfect location that you would love to investigate someday?
Oh, if I could, pick and choose, I would love to. Obviously, the Pacific Northwest up in, the Oregon and Washington would be a dream come true, and hopefully I'll be getting up out there at some point. Uh, but I don't know. Actually, one of the places I would love to go would be Tasmania, to investigate the Tasmanian tiger and see if that's still alive. It's an extinct creature, but there's been still sightings of it to this day. So I would love to go out there and do an investigation on that. That would be really neat. And accent, I mean.
The Tasmanian tiger, I'm assuming it's a tiger-like creature.
Yeah, it's a canine species that went
Uh-huh.
extinct, I believe, in the 40s. The last one died in a zoo or in captivity, and there's been photos and videos, very recent too, within the past 10 years of these identical like creatures in the woods. So I think that it's kind of it's not a cryptozoological creature, but it's something that I think is equally as cool and as interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's interesting. So the big question on my mind, and I've asked a few people this recently, like I had mentioned that, this is, I've kind of been on like this Bigfoot kick, this Sasquatch thing. What in your best educated guess, and we're gonna dive a little deeper into it once you answer this, but in your best guess, what is Sasquatch? Is it a prehistorical animal? It's lived for thousands of years, or is it something more paranormal? What is your best guess?
So I think Bigfoot is probably what we call a Denisovan, which is an ancient human that kind of lived alongside of the Neanderthals. Um, and the Denisovan is kind of like the missing link with which we know exists in between ancient humans and today's humans. So it's possible that not only ancient, humans like the Neanderthals lived alongside of them, but also modern day humans as well. And it wouldn't be outside of the the thought to say that they could still exist and have could still exist alongside of modern day humans. There wouldn't be, outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, and I can kind of get, because like I know there's like vast wilderness out there, man, and that's uninhabited, that they could potentially be thriving, and but there's just so many strange things about them. Like, I mean, these people that have these sightings, they'll just kind of disappear or fade, or they'll like run into the brush, and then it's like they're gone. Almost as if they're like fading out of in and out of our reality, kind of deal. I don't know what to make of that, or the fact that a lot of times there's like UFO sightings near Bigfoot sightings in like the relatively same area, same time frames. And I'm not saying they're flying in UFOs or anything. I'm just saying that there's something that seems paranormal about it, or that it's like tied to paranormal in some way.
Yeah, I've heard that, and that's a common philosophy among a lot of people in the Bigfoot community. Um, I don't necessarily um, I don't roll that way, if you will. I didn't want to say that. I was trying to think of every word that I could possibly say besides roll that way. But uh that my thought process is because I think it's like a physical animal. And the reason why I think that is because of the evidence that I've found. Now, I wouldn't put any I think if anybody has a philosophy on Bigfoot as it is, I think that's you're ahead of the curve. And I think that's really important. um, I would challenge anybody that has is that says that or philosophizes that Bigfoot is of the UFO realm or of the paranormal realm or of the interdimensional realm, to show me some evidence about that. And I've asked this many times before, and no one has been able to show me any evidence so far. So if or any of your listeners, please, I would
Yeah.
love to I would love to have my mind changed.
And I could get on board with that, and I think you're right. I mean, the lack of evidence of them being of the paranormal realm, but the simple fact, I think, that there's lack of evidence of the physical form almost makes me question: is it more paranormal? Like, and almost as if, and I'm not saying they're not physical, because like you said, there's footprints and stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. Perhaps they can go in and out of our reality on a whim. Like, I feel like they may even be more spiritually evolved than humans are. There's people that talk about how, and I don't know how they have any proof of this, and I'm just throwing these things at you just to get your take on it. But I'm not saying I'm a believer of this, but some claim that they actually can communicate telepathically with each other and with other humans.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that is out there. Um, and again, I'm not putting anybody down. If you as long as you have a thought process about Bigfoot, I think it's cool. But um, once you get into like my bridge from Bigfoot to other things lies where I had a unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP or whatever the UFO thing,
Yeah,
and
UAP.
and then we did have Bigfoot activity shortly thereafter. I can't say it, to me, that's not close enough to relate it. Like it just like the UAP just kind of zigzagged across the sky and that was it. And then 15 minutes later, we get like a really amazing Bigfoot vocalization. Um, I can't, it's not enough for me to connect the two.
I get it, but there's probably hundreds of people just like you that have had that same experience with the two within a few minutes time. That's my thing on it,
You're
you
right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. If I mean, that's true. And I think there would be more reports then of that. But although it takes two things to have a Bigfoot sighting, a Bigfoot and a person. So yeah, that's true. That's a very good way of looking at it.
And I mean, I'm not sure, man. I mean, I like I said, I could kind of see both sides. I don't really have an opinion one way or another. I think it's fascinating. It's super cool.
Well, and the cool thing is that it nobody knows, and that's we can have conversations like this, and it's so open ended that nobody is wrong in this whole thing, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, I could live with that. So in this documentary that I watched, they were talking about how this was out west, I think out in like New Mexico. They were talking about how they think that, well, this one guy was talking about how he thinks that they live underground. Have you heard any stories or ideas behind any of this? That was like
Sure.
the first time I'd ever heard that.
Oh yeah, on the East Coast, a lot of the rolling theory is that Bigfoot live in the cave systems that are in the limestone on the East Coast or in the stands or limestone. Um, and although I think that's a really good area to live in, I think they're just too explored by today's culture. So I don't think it would make sense for them. Although there are, thousands of undiscovered caves, I guess, if you will, but I don't think they're big enough that a Bigfoot could sustain themselves in them. But I think they would make great places for them to hunker down for a night. Absolutely. But do I think they live underground and just come out to eat? I don't think so. No.
And they're likely nocturnal.
I see. That's a thing that people debate too. Is 70% of sightings happen during the day. So, but there's more people out during the day than there are at night. Our investigations, we do most of our Bigfoot investigating at night because that's when we've had the most activity. During the day, there seems to be visual sightings, and during the night, there seems to be kind of more up close vocalizations and kind of more intense activity.
Well, I think one thing that we could probably maybe touch on is regardless of what camp you're on as far as what Bigfoot is, Bigfoot's obviously intelligent enough to avoid man, and it seems to be done purposefully, right? And that maybe their senses are extremely their maybe their sense of sight and sense of smell are a lot better than ours. It just because I mean they just seem so elusive, even when there is a sighting, it's like almost as if they know that they're being watched and then they're gone. What is your take on that?
Sure, sure. I mean, I think it's almost like a genetic kind of adaptation that Bigfoot have, even just naturally growing up. I don't know if it's learned or just passed down through the parents. Is that Bigfoot needs to stay away from people. People are bad, and if people find out that Bigfoot exist, then bad things are going to happen to the Bigfoot. I think they know enough about that. Going back to my theory about how they're Denisovans, I think mentally they would have enough capacity in being ancient humans to have that thought process. I don't think they're advanced enough to start a fire, but I think they're advanced enough to have language. I think they're advanced enough to be able to communicate, and also to know that bad things will happen if people, if they get around people. But on the other hand, I think you do have these sightings of sightings that we talked about before, because Bigfoot are inquisitive, and they kind of get themselves into a snag because they're so inquisitive. Like when we were talking about what happened to us in Whitehall, I think we were just too close to their family group, and they wanted to get us out of there. So they did everything possible besides harming us. They could have hit us with those rocks. There's no question about it, but they didn't. So why? You know?
There's definitely an intelligence there, like when it comes to that, because I mean, I've heard a lot of reports about that, like how like there'll be you'll be in the woods with and you'll hear something coming on you, but like they don't never really attack, right? I mean, you don't get no reports of them actually physically harming someone or something like that. So they do seem relatively, even though it might be a scary situation to be in, they don't seem like they're malicious or anything, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I can't recall any encounter that has had someone get hurt because of a Bigfoot.
That's fascinating. Your thoughts on I don't know, I don't want to go too woo woo, but I'm like I talked a little bit with you off air, just saying that how I feel like I've grown a lot spiritually since we last spoke. What is your thoughts on maybe them perhaps being more spiritually evolved than us? Um, and maybe even their connection to Native American lore. Can you maybe touch on that too?
Yeah, could you give an example of what you mean by more spiritually connected than us?
Just well, because you're not really necessarily a believer of that camp, but I think that's
I mean,
kind of what I
I
think that's
can,
kind of where people are going with this when they say that they can you know, uh, communicate telepathically, and then they can kind of fade in and out of reality, our reality, because I think what they're trying to say is that they're just spiritually evolved in a way that it's almost as if they can kind of, shift their energy because, that's when it comes down to it, when you boil it down, like that's all we are is energy. And like, I mean, everything around us, all the material world is like all nothing but empty, open space. It's really kind of an illusion when you boil it down. So what they're saying is that they're just so much more advanced that they're able to somehow kind of fade in and out, and that perhaps it's because there's just a connection there with source or God or just a more spiritual, they're more of a spiritually divine being or culture even than humans. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
yeah, that's I've heard that, and the way you actually described that is probably one of the best ways that I've heard it described. So kudos on that. But yeah, like you said, the energy going from one dimension, from our dimension, into another portal, or through a portal, it's very um uh, I, I it is hard for me to go down that camp, like you said, because I'm so of the other other side. Um, you did touch on Native Americans though, and that's something that I'd like to bring up too in my presentations, is the Native Americans. Almost every Native American tribe in North America has a story of the Bigfoot type creature, if you will. And some of them, most of them, they're just among, just like the bear and the coyote and stuff like that. But there are some where um, they're different. god, not god, but different mythical being, if you will. And I always go down the lines of saying, if anybody knows about the woods and the creatures in the woods, it's going to be the Native Americans. So the fact that they do have, for example, the Genewaska in Ohio is the grassman, if you will, if what they call the Bigfoot now. But then in the Iroquois tribe, the Genesqua is an 8 foot tall, stone covered being. So we know that's not like a person, but that does have the characteristics of a Bigfoot. And they say that it's very mean, and the there's you can't pierce the armor on it, and it kills people. And it's interesting too, because reports of the Ohio Bigfoot or the Grassman indicate that there's a more kind of aggressive Bigfoot out that way. So that's, kind of a side comparison. But yeah, I think that's interesting that the Native Americans do have a connection with Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that pretty much every tribe in North America has a story or a belief in this creature. I mean, they would know. They pretty
Of
much lived
course.
off the land and lived in the land, with the land. Um, I mean, that alone just it just carries so much weight, at least with me, like that, to know that, like, I mean, they're not fabricating this. They didn't all just,
No.
you know,
And not to mention, these Native American tribes, they didn't speak with each other. There's a language barrier there. And for them to all have the same exact, well, very similar creature, I mean, you can't argue with that.
yeah, yeah, that's very valid. So what do you think about our government? Do you think they know more than they lead on about Bigfoot?
I don't get into government conspiracies when I do talks and stuff like that. I will say that I'd be surprised that if the government didn't know what was out there. Do I think that they have a Bigfoot body and they're testing them and all this stuff? I don't know. I, I couldn't tell you. Um, but again, I try not to get into anything government conspiracy when it comes to Bigfooting, because I think Bigfooting's fun, and it's I don't know, not that conspiracy theories aren't fun, but I'd like to keep it more on the Bigfoot kind of fun topic.
And that's I'm glad you mentioned that. And that's I think that's one of the things that maybe probably has me, even though I say I'm neutral, has me maybe probably slightly leaning more towards the paranormal side of things, is that there is no body yet.
Hmm.
There has not been no body that, so I mean, I almost in some ways wish that science would discover a body and it would be public, so that we could learn more about them and know that, like, they are
And then
they
we could
are
start the conservation process.
yeah, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And maybe even, I mean, there's perhaps a lot we could learn from the creatures, you know.
There'd be I mean, absolutely. If Bigfoot was real, it'd be the discovery of the century.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. So the fact that there has never been a body found, as that we know of, um, makes me question and wonder. Uh, Although I still believe they're real, regardless, because we've been talking, that there's just been way too many stories, too many people that are upstanding people with credible, backgrounds and credible stories, and everybody can't be making this up that's seen one. But it just makes me wonder, then, I mean, if they are really out there in nature, where are the bodies?
Well, if you it's a kind of I wouldn't say a simple answer, but if you look at where Bigfoot are said to be are sighted, and then you look at kind of the woods in that area, and you look at the scavengers in the woods, you have there's a lot of scavengers where it comes to, vultures, coyotes, fox, porcupine. I mean, there could be there's anything and their mother that are going to scavenge off a dead creature. Um, and then you have also soil acidity levels. A lot of Bigfoot sightings come in areas of limestone where those caves are, like we were talking about before, but also that indicates that the soil acidity is pretty high, which will break down and kind of dissolve, quote unquote, a body. Actually takes, like, in North Jersey where I'm at, like 2 weeks for a body to go from completely fresh dead to not there anymore. So that's not a lot of time. And then you look at the population of Bigfoot, and there's not a lot of population of Bigfoot. I ask hunters their entire lives, how many times have you come across a dead bear in the woods? And their heads are blown when they realize that they've never came across a dead bear.
I think that's a good comparison, and that's a good point. Yeah, so that makes sense. Interesting. Um, so just trying to collect my thoughts here on there. I had a point I was going to make or ask you something, and um, so any other strange occurrences happened to you in the woods?
Well, I found some underwear one time along this deserted road that was really creepy. And then just not too long ago, I had someone, I later found out who it was, but someone, at the time I had no idea. I was camping and I was in my car sleeping. I have this Bigfoot mobile command center, so I'm able to sleep in it, which is pretty cool. And someone came up, had to be like at 11 o'clock at night, and like I was asleep, it was rainy, and someone come up and was like knocking on the window, and I was not okay with that. And it's like, leave me alone when I'm camping. Don't interfere with my space. So I'm thinking it's like a cop or four strangers. So I'm like, oh crap, I'm not doing anything wrong. But I look out my little peephole that I have, and it was not, it's like a white car, but it was like a four-door coupe. And I was like, oh no, this is somebody else. And I went down to hunker in, and I had my weapon for protection right there. And I was like, oh man, this is about to go down. But thankfully, just left. Actually walked around the car and then left. So,
So you
but
didn't talk to them. You don't know what they wanted or what they were doing.
no, no,
That's strange, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not cool. That's
No.
absolutely not cool. Um, uh, I'm trying to think. I've been out on a paranormal investigation one time. I actually went out to a haunted house, and we did a little thing that wasn't during a Bigfoot investigation though. That was something else. Um, and then, like I said, the UFO that I saw, that was in High Point, New Jersey, and then I saw a very similar, kind of looked like the space station, but we looked it up, and the space station wasn't going to be supposed to be over us, but it was in central Pennsylvania, and it was just a light that kind of traveled across the sky. Could have been a satellite.
Yeah, that's strange. The guys that shot that video or filmed that documentary that I had mentioned previously, they had a sighting where they were at too when they were filming, which is
Mm,
it's just interesting that I think that's been going on a lot here lately. Seems to be anyway. People meant talking about sightings in the sky and stuff. Makes you wonder.
yeah, yeah, no, it certainly does, and I can't say that I've been hearing a lot of encounters. More, I can't say that I've been hearing more encounters with Bigfoot and UFOs, but I know, recently along the Chestnut Ridge in Pennsylvania, they've been having a lot of UFO encounters, and there have been some Bigfoot sightings there. Also, there's always Bigfoot sightings there, but there's been an increase of big time of UFO sightings. That's in the just in the Chestnut Ridge area, which is pretty neat. It's a history has a long long history of sightings there.
Yeah. Now, what's your take on the Sasquatch as far as like, do you think they travel in kind of like tribes or herds
Yeah.
or yeah.
Well, I think they have family groups. And I'll tell you why. In New Jersey, where I do a lot of my investigation, um, there's two family groups that live in the state. There's a group of five of them and a group of four of them. And I could tell that because of the sightings. People report different sightings and different creatures and whatever, but also because of their footprints. Every third year, the sightings increase in New Jersey by 80%. So depending on where you're at in the state, like if you're in North Jersey, where I am now, the sightings have increased this year by 30%. In a year and a half from now, they're down in South Jersey. They're going to be in the Pine Barrens area. Those sightings are going to increase in 2025 by 80%.
So they kind of migrate.
No, actually, it's a common misconception. Nothing migrates in North America besides birds. So I think they're actually nomadic, which would kind of put me right on theory of early humans, because they're hunter-gatherer type nomadic movements. They follow the food rather than the climate or anything else, which is if you take it to another level, I think the Bigfoot kind of their diet consists of what bear eat. So like berries and grasses and stuff like that, mostly 70%. Um, so if you strip like a berry bush to its complete bareness, it takes 3 years for that berry bush to grow again to get growing berries. So there's every third year for you. I think that's just too many
So
coincidences.
because the food's in a cycle more than anything,
Absolutely.
and obviously they either know or can, I don't know, smell or sense that where to
Oh,
go.
when the food runs out in one area, you go to your next area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
fascinating. That's fascinating. I mean, it makes sense the way you explained it. That's fascinating. Um, the thing I love about your show is that like you made a good point. I went back and listened to the first interview just to kind of get ready for this one. And I love how you said that you're like, how did you say it? You're like a little bit of expedition unknown with like a
Oh,
little bit of like finding Bigfoot or something
yeah.
like that. And I thought that was pretty cool because that's the thing I get a kick about, watching your videos is that it's fascinating even when you don't necessarily provide evidence of a Bigfoot, because there's a lot more to it, right?
Well, that's what the show is designed to show, is that it's not just about going out and finding a Bigfoot every time. If that was my job, I would be out of a job very quick, because that doesn't happen too often. Now we go out and I document the the experience behind finding Bigfoot, and that's what I hope the viewers will connect with the most. It's not about doing a tree knock or a call every 2 seconds like some TV shows do, and it's not about having this $1 million equipment and access to these high tech drones and whatever, these bikes and stuff, if you will. But there's more of a down home, uh, real homegrown experience, amateur experience behind it, and it shows you, what these people didn't find Bigfoot this time, but Mike's car got stuck again. I'm gonna have to watch that out. But another aspect of the show too is we go to these small towns, and a lot of Bigfoot hotspots and are in very low socioeconomic areas. So by bringing and investigating Bigfoot in those hotspots or low socioeconomic areas, we bring people to those areas who watch the show, and they'll bring tourism, and hopefully these people will go and stop at the shops that we stopped at and spend their money and eat local and stuff like that. So the show isn't just about finding Bigfoot. It's totally, there's definitely multifaceted levels of it.
That's a really cool way to look at it. Um, as far as the increasing in the tourism and stuff, that's pretty neat. Yeah, that's pretty neat. What is your take on some of these Bigfoot shows? Because I mean, you've been a person, you've been out there doing it. I mean, you're doing it all the time. Like, what is your take on, like, maybe kind of how they portray it versus how it really is?
Well, I don't necessarily like to bash shows, but finding Bigfoot is the reason why I made my show, and it's the reason why I got into Bigfooting to start with. So I can't say anything bad about that show. But what I will say is the producers of the show um, produce it in a manner where it's made for ratings. And all these shows on TV are made for ratings. That's what separates my show from anybody from the TV shows, is because I don't need ratings. No, YouTube's not going to kick me off anywhere if I don't get views. So it's done just because I want to do it. Where um, these shows on TV are, they need to have ratings and they need to keep their viewers up. That's why these shows on TV are never going to find Bigfoot. If they find Bigfoot, then they're her whole concept of the show. They're out of a show.
Yeah, and not to maybe mention any particular show or anything like that, but I mean, does it seem credible the way they're investigating, or do you think some of it's kind of faked, or maybe not even faked, but dramatized for the ratings?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of that goes along with the lines of what I just said. But I will say, I know I did just kind of bash Finding Bigfoot, but I will say, I know the people who do the show, and I know that they are some of the best investigators in the field. So I know if there's a piece of evidence that does become of somewhere, and that's not just on Finding Bigfoot, but any of these shows. I do know if there is evidence that comes from it, it will be appropriately documented, which I think is phenomenal. I think that's imperative, that and people just getting out in the field too should know at least how to document evidence a little bit, basic stuff before going out.
Yeah, I think that's valid. So real quick, so when I go out into nature, man, it's like and I do it often, but it's like a reset for me.
Yeah.
It's like a calming, just maybe just getting in touch with, something spiritual, or higher than myself, greater than myself. What does it do for you, man, when you go out in the woods? I mean, is it something similar, or is it something that kind
Yeah.
of helps you?
Yeah, it's the exact same, man. My main episode when we went up to Bigelow and Bigelow Preserve in Maine, I kind of documented that a little bit, and it is, man. It's a free therapy session, and it's like the longer I'm out there, it's like a full body reset. It's for me, it's not. It's getting out of what I normally do every day. It's doing something different, and it's not talking to people or talking to the people that I normally talk to. Um, and I've noticed that, if I could achieve those two things, then that's what does it for me. But I know, other people have different ways in the woods of realize. Some people are into hiking and trail running, and that takes their mind off stuff. But I think any time that anybody can get out and into nature is a time well spent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's something to be said, just by, I mean, as humans, I mean, that's kind of like what we came from. That's what we evolved from. Like, it's just it's more natural, and it's soothing and calming, and I agree with you. I think, with the modern day times, we've just gotten so far away from a lot of that in society. Some people don't get it at all in their life, and I think maybe it's something that's can potentially not necessarily harm them, but it's not good. It has maybe perhaps a negative impact on them, that they're not in touch with nature, or they're not resetting themselves like they could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the whole points behind the show is to get people outside and into nature. And I think I said that on the prior interview. And it still is very valid. The people that can't get out and into nature, I've had people message me from the show and that have said, hey, listen, because of this reason, some medical reason, I can't get out and do stuff that I used to, but I live vicariously through your videos. Like, that to me is the coolest thing. I mean, that just made the whole show totally worthwhile making.
Yeah, that is really cool. So what's in store for you? Like, or what is your future plans, as far as maybe your near future plans for the channel and what you want to do, and then maybe some long-term goals?
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff planned this year. I think we were talking a little bit earlier. We got a lot of events coming up. I'm speaking a lot, got a lot of presentations coming up, and all those can be found on our Facebook page on the pin post. You go down and it's all the events for the rest of the year around there. Um, so we're going to be busy with that. We got a lot of filming that we're doing locally, a lot of cool stuff since this is the Bigfoot year up in Sussex County where I'm at. We're doing a lot of filming up here. We've got a lot of really cool stuff that we've been doing. And then starting in the fall, we're doing another kind of documentary with the thing called the Mantis Man, which is cool. And that's a 6 foot tall praying mantis type creature that lives in the Musconetcong watershed of New Jersey up here. So that's kind of a little sneak peek of,
Whoa, so it's a
yeah,
crypt. I've never heard of that one. That one
yeah.
sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's been seen more than once. So we're gonna go down there and see what we can investigate and see if we can find it.
that's pretty cool. You're gonna have to fill me in on that. Let me know what you find, or
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
that's cool, man. That's real cool. Well, listen, man, thanks again for taking the time to do this tonight. It's been a great conversation. It's not very often that I get people that is knowledgeable like you on this subject. I love this subject, and the passion's really growing here lately on this subject for me. So
I
thank
could
you
see
again.
I could see it and hear it in your voice. You could just you're getting really into the Bigfoot thing, and I love that too. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it
Welcome,
is.
welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And just can you just maybe tell the listeners, man, where they can check you out on YouTube, where they can, maybe find you on Facebook and those kinds of things.
Yeah, the show is called In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, and our YouTube is Sussex County Bigfoot NJ. Our Facebook is the name of the show, In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, and our Instagram, which we've been doing a lot of cool behind the scenes photos and stuff on, is Shadow of Red Eye. So you guys can check that out, and be sure, if you like our stuff, to give us that little subscribe thing. Everyone little, little subscribe counts. And Dylan, I appreciate you having me on for a second time. It's been enlightening, and it's been a great conversation as well on my end too. I had a really great time.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me.